and make our nation great and strong, bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. Fill our hearts with true humility, make us cherish fearless honesty, and help us to resist oppressors' rule with all our will and might forevermore. And help us to resist oppressors' rule with all our will and might forevermore.
Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our father's land with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. O God of creation, direct our noble course, guide our leaders right, and use the truth to know. In love and honesty to grow, and live in just and true. Great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign.
Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, and I would say good morning for those of us, of course. And I might be connecting from the US or Canada or wherever, of course, it is that your daybreak might obviously be starting with. We totally and, of course, completely welcome you to today's special Canadian focused global education webinar. We usually give ourselves that extra time of 10-15 minutes, of course, to allow for more persons to connect to the meeting. So that's the major reason we don't get to start immediately by 5 o'clock. We just give that special allowance for people, of course, that might be on their way home or trying to probably connect, just to ensure that nobody's missing out on the important information that we get to share through this particular webinar. So my name is Elder, and I'm connecting from Texas in the United States. And yes, I'm fortunate to lead the Global ProconnectPAY team. Okay, so my audio. Okay, so please, Okwemi, can you verify that I am loud and clear? Because it's possible that some persons might not probably hear me very well. Okay, so if you can't hear me clearly, please, we would love to check with your audio at your end, because I know that we'll just try as much as possible. Okay, so please, if you can't hear me clearly, please just try to connect your audio. Okay, you are clear but not loud. Okay, that's another weird one I've not heard before. Okay, I'm clear but I'm not loud. Okay, so I want to believe that everyone, please, if you can hear me clearly, and of course, in an audible way, you can also let me know, so that I just get to test run my headset and of course my mic from here. Okay, so someone says more volume, more volume, more volume, more volume. Okay, so I'm coming. Let me see what I can do to that. Okay, so is this better now? Is the volume way higher now? Okay, so I guess we're all sorted out of the volume. Of course, the volume now is high. Okay, so thank you, of course, to everyone of us that are connected today. Please, for those that might be, trying to connect to the meeting, this meeting can only take 100%. So we've shared out a YouTube link to allow, of course, individuals connect to, the live meeting itself. While of course it goes on in the Zoom as it's were. So, like I mentioned earlier, today we have, of course, a specially focused and packaged webinar, focused, of course, on Canada, and we've just given it a special title and name that, of course, says "Oh My Canada." For many of us that are, we live in Nigeria, we live in Ghana, we live in Uganda. We know for a fact that the Canadian dream, is mostly what a lot of us desire. Not because we hate our country, not because we were frustrated with Nigeria, but it's majorly because of the insecurity, the inequality, and more importantly, when you also think of the future of your offspring, your kids, if you are married, and even if you are not married, you are still thinking about the future of your offspring. Do you want them going in the climate that Nigeria or Ghana or Uganda currently offers? Years ago, it was already getting bad, but a lot of us have been able to pull through. But the truth is has it gotten better or has it gotten worse? And will it get any better anytime soon? Looking at the political climate in Nigeria, the economic climate in Africa, it speaks, of course, to the other pendulum. So oftentimes, when people make up their minds that they want to relocate to a new country, I am pretty sure that it's not a decision you take lightly, because you are practically going to be living your entire life that you are used to, your career that you are used to, all of the growth, of course, that you've experienced back, of course, in Africa, to start up a new life entirely in a new environment, in a new climate. But we're not talking about the cold, the loneliness. We're not speaking to, a lot of the psychological pain that comes, of course, with getting to relocate abroad. So there are a lot of, a lot of things that goes into that decision, to want to relocate and, of course, acquire that global education and, of course, get that citizenship. So in today's presentation, is going to be twofold. Now, the first phase of our presentation today, we're going to have a special guest that will be joining us from Canada itself. So I am in the US, but I was in Canada in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been in Canada, traveling through Canada, getting to meet our students, getting to meet our candidates. So I'm currently in the US too, doing the same. I'll be back in Nigeria by next week. And one of the major things, of course, that we've gotten, one of the insights we've gotten, for students who funded, and for those of us those that we intend to fund, is the fact that the bulk of people, love going to Canada because there's a clear pathway to citizenship. There's a clear pathway to citizenship. You study, you get your PR, or you get your postgraduate work permit, you get PR, and then of course you eventually begin to count down, your years, which is 3 years, to become eligible to apply for citizenship. So if you've not committed a crime, you've been paying your taxes, you've been doing everything according to the books, in 3 years' time, you get your citizenship done and dusted. And the funny part, in all of my interactions, in Canada, in the last 2, 3 weeks prior to coming to the US, everybody I met, everybody, and I can tell you that I met citizens from over 50 different countries in all of my interactions, both socially, professionally, in meetings and events I went to. The number one aim, the number one goal, the number one motivation, the number one reason everybody comes to Canada is simple. The pathway to citizenship is clearly defined. It's easy. So long as you do everything by the books, you are guaranteed that you will get that citizenship. So people I met from China, people from India, from Kenya, South Africa, Montenegro, like even weird countries you probably never heard of, St. Lucia, and Grenadines, like a lot of places across the world. The number one motivation they had for coming to Canada is simply because of the easy, clearly defined pathway to citizenship. And the best part to all of this is the fact that years ago, it wasn't like this in Canada. Years ago, before Justin Trudeau, the current prime minister, came into office, it wasn't this straightforward. It wasn't this easy. It wasn't, you couldn't predict what, of course, could make you become a Canadian citizen, particularly when, of course, you come here to study, whether it's in the US, of course, or in Canada, as it were. But, with Justin Trudeau coming into power, and of course, he's very liberal, very open-minded, and, the United States majorly, what Canada is doing today is what the United States did many years ago, welcoming immigrants from every part of the world to come build their economy. So it's simply the same thing, of course, Canada is doing today, opening up, of course, their economy, opening up their society. So when you go to Canada, you practically see every form of human beings from every part of the world that make up, of course, Canada, whether it's in the French-speaking part of Canada or whether in the English-speaking part of Canada. So in the first phase of our webinar today, we're going to be having a special guest that is currently in Canada. He's in Nigeria. He went to Canada. Of course, he was in Nigeria, had his first degree in Nigeria, was working in Nigeria, done quite okay for himself in Nigeria, and decided many years ago to also come for an MBA in Canada. And from the MBA, he was able to move down to PR, and from PR, he became a citizen. So right now, he has dual citizenship, both the Nigerian citizenship and, of course, the Canadian citizenship. And that obviously opens limitless doors of opportunities for him. So we're inviting him majorly to share his practical experience. How has he been able to survive? How has he been able to navigate his way? Was it a smart decision? Has that investment paid off? And this was more than probably 14, 15 years ago. Has that investment paid off? Is it better off, than it was if he probably were to remain, of course, in Nigeria? So he's coming to tell us from a practical point of view, the very step you are also considering to take today. Now, when, of course, we are done sharing a life example of what it means to move from a student to PR to citizenship, we will then come, of course, to speak to the ProconnectPAY process. The ProconnectPAY process. Everybody gathered here today, I will say this clearly, we do not offer a pathway to citizenship just by applying for PR direct. No, we're not a PR giving platform. Our goal is to provide financing that allows you to study in Canada. That's what we do in ProconnectPAY. We provide the financing that allows you to study in Canada. So it simply means that we get to pay for your tuition, we get to pay for your accommodation, We get to pay for your feeding, your transportation, your health insurance. We even get to reimburse your flight tickets that you, of course, you utilize in moving out. So we're not this is not oh, I want to go and work in Canada. No, you would have to take the educated pathway. You study, you get PR, you graduate meritoriously, you get PR, then begin to count down to citizenship. So for every one of us gathered here today, this is an educated platform. We are big in promoting, of course, global education. And we don't just promote it by our mouth, we also promote it by way of the financing we give out there. And just to put this out there, ProconnectPAY is the first and only African-focused edu-fintech company that provides and facilitates access to financing for high potential Africans that would love to acquire a global education. And of course, why the focus on Canada? Because 99% of the time, it is easier, it is faster, you can count down, you can know the clear outcome. If I get PR, I can get citizenship. So, and we know that we all need, of course, this alternative so that we're able to offer ourselves and our families and our spouses, that better life that we probably might not get, living within, of course, the African climate or climate as it were. So, me, please, can you verify that Leonard has connected to this meeting?
Yes, it's connected. It's Leonard.
Okay. Let me make him a call. So, like I mentioned earlier, just to recap, this meeting we hold in two phases. The first phase, of course, is one where Leonard, that is currently based in Canada, a Nigerian, and of course, a Canadian citizen, will share his practical experience. And of course, his Canadian, his pathway from being a student, of course, to citizenship. And like we said clearly, we offer the studentship to PR to citizenship pathway. So we're not here to do PR to citizenship. Oh, can I work with you guys for my PR? We do not do that. Our expertise lies in providing educational financing to enable you study in Canada. Of course, we also fund people to study in the US. But for today, we have this special focus strictly on Canada, So I'm going to hand over, of course, the mic to Leonard. He will, of course, give his general background intro, and he will get to speak to every one of us for the next 45 minutes to 1 hour. When we're done with that, we'll then move to the second phase of our meeting for today, which is majorly speaking to the process itself of assessing our financing. And just to state this clearly, the three major institutions we're focused on today is University of New Brunswick, Northeastern University, they have a Toronto and a Vancouver campus, and Ontario College of Management and Technology. So please, let's put that at the back of our minds so that you can even Google about each of these schools on your own. University of New Brunswick, Northeastern University, they have a campus in Toronto, they have a campus in Vancouver, and of course, Ontario College of Management and Technology. So we'll get to share more details on each of these colleges and each of these schools, and of course, how our processes support you to study abroad. So I'm handing over now to Leonard. He'll be taking over the mic from here. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Elder. Can you guys hear me okay?
Loud and
Yes,
clear.
we can.
Okay, I'm going to turn on my camera, but before I do that, let me share my slide. Okay, I think my video is on now. Share. If someone can let me know if you can see my slide, I would appreciate that.
Yes,
Okay,
we can.
you can see it loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for joining, and welcome. Thanks, Elder, for the introduction. First of all, I see that we have over 100 people on the line today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking your time to be a part of this event. There 1,001 other things you would have been doing with your time on a Saturday. And I miss Nigeria, I miss Lagos, I miss the parties sometimes. But you've chosen to be with us. Thank you for doing that. We at ProconnectPAY and at Pinnacle are happy to have you on the call. We have one objective today, which is to provide you with enough information as you embark on this life-changing journey. And I use the word life-changing because it changed my life. And if there is one thing, I can guarantee you two things. One, I can guarantee you that the process from you applying for study in a school in Canada to when you become a citizen, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. I can guarantee you that. I can also guarantee you that at the end of the day, if you embark on this journey, you will not regret it at all. I don't believe in very long presentations. I would like to keep as much time as possible for Q&As. As I go through the slides, if there are burning questions that you have in mind and you don't want to lose them, I would say just post them in the chat. The ProConnect team, hopefully I'll be able to wrap up my presentation on time to give us enough time to answer your questions. So Pinnacle Global Consulting, that's the company that I set up about maybe 6 years ago now, after completing my MBA. One of the reasons why I set up that company, it's because the school that I went to where I did my master's, which is University of New Brunswick, and I'll talk about that school in details as I go through my slides, they were struggling to attract international students from Nigeria. When I did my MBA, we were about 7 or 8 Nigerians in class. And they kept telling me that they couldn't find talent from Nigeria. And I wasn't sure where they were looking for talent from. That was the first thing I said to them. Are you sure you are looking in the right place? They said, yep, we've been there a couple of times. We just can't attract the right talent. And we said, okay, give Pinnacle a 1-year contract and let's see how that goes. Suffice to say that we've been working with the school for the last 5 years. And the number of Nigerian students in the MBA program have grown from 5, 6, 7, 8 when I was there to over 80 students every year. And the number is growing and it will continue to grow. Just a very quick overview of who I am. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting and finance. And then I came for my MBA in Canada. I also have the project management professional designation, which is PMP. And I just want to state for anybody who is on this call, who is thinking about changing careers and wondering, is it too late for me to change my career? I will tell you categorically that it's never too late to switch. Before I came to Canada, one of the things that I did was to find out from the school here or the recruiter here to say, are there certifications that I need to take to give me an edge over competition? And they said, yep. They gave me a couple of options. They gave me the project management professional. They told me about the accounting designation. They told me about the supply chain designation. I went online, Googled all the 3, decided to settle for the project management professional. And to be very honest with you, the first time I took that exam, for anyone who is familiar with it, I went to Accra, Ghana to take the exam. And guess what? I failed woefully. But there was a lesson from that for me. The fact is, I was able to at least conquer my fear. And I was preparing for the exam alongside my 9-to-5 job in the bank. So I went back a second time and I was successful. I also just got my license as a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I put that in asterisks because I passed the exam maybe a couple of months back and we're in the position to start assisting clients with visa issuance. In terms of my career, I have about 20 years working experience covering IT, HR, finance. I work as a project manager in Canada, in addition to running Pinnacle Global. I used to work for a company called Irving Oil. I've changed job recently, and I now consult for the government of New Brunswick. New Brunswick is where I live. It's one of the provinces in Canada, for anyone who is not very familiar with Canada, but it's a small province. It's like coming to Nigeria and living in maybe Benin. It's not one of the big cities. New Brunswick is not Ontario. It's not British Columbia. And then lastly, when I came to school in Canada, I came alone, and then my family joined me after that. And I will talk about how you can also set things up successfully for you and your family, for anyone who is on the call and who is wondering, how do I bring my family? Do they come with me? Do they need to join me afterwards? And all that. Very quickly at Pinnacle, ProconnectPAY, we are partners. We process admissions to universities. We've helped over 100 students in the last year. And of course, when they come in, they all come with their families. This is some of our partner schools that we work with and some of our other partners. University of New Brunswick is the first there, and that is intentional, and that is because it's my alma mater. There are other schools across Canada that we also work with. If you, to your extreme right, there's an organization there called Simply Financials, and I'd just like to talk about them very quickly. Maybe I need to pull up my pointer. Let's see. Okay, so Simply Financials, what they basically do is they can open an account on your behalf in Canada in your name so that you can move your living expenses to that account. And once you do that, when you are applying for your visa, they would issue you what they call a GIC, or a guaranteed investment certificate, to support your visa application. Normally, before you apply for visa, the visa officer wants to see proof of your living expenses in your bank statement. And most people would show that in a Nigerian bank statement. If you are able to send that living expenses, which is about 10,000 Canadian dollars, to an account in your name in Canada, it just gives more credibility to your visa application. So as you embark on your journey, that is one thing that I would ask you to keep in mind. I just want to share my story with you, and I know that Elder touched on it briefly. I had worked in 3 banks, and my last employer before I left for Canada in 2015 was First Bank. And I was in the corporate banking, specifically providing loans to oil and gas companies. It was a tough decision to quit my job because, of course, I started my banking career quite early, from right out of school, and I'd worked my way to the managerial level. And for me, I was at the peak of my career. So I had to make a tough decision as to whether or not the timing was right. So I would say to you that if you are sitting down here and you are wondering, is this the right time? Is this not the right time? There can never be a right time. I would say take the plunge, just start the process. I did not have all the school tuition fees sitting down in one account. And I would say to most people on the call today that you are quite fortunate because ProConnect is there to support you with a loan for your tuition. When I was coming to school in Canada, those options were not readily available. So I had to find my way. And when I say find my way, I became a corporate beggar. And what I mean by that is I had to go to my friends and families and maybe a few people that I've worked with in the past. And I said, look, this is my story. This is what I want to do. Is there any way you can be of assistance? So don't wait for all your ducks to be in a row. Don't wait for you to have all your funds all lined up before you start the journey. as you start the journey, things will begin to line up. And to put that in simple terms, you just have to trust the process, right? And when I left for Canada, we were expecting our last child, who was somewhere upstairs now, making so much noise. So I don't know what your story is. I don't know what is holding you back. We all have challenges. They are part of life. But I would say to you, start the process, trust the process, and things will fall into place naturally. And one of the reasons why we are having today's session really is to provide you with that signpost or guidance so that the mistakes that we make, you don't have to make those same mistakes as you embark on this journey. So that's my story. I know that today is not about me. It's more about those of you on the call. Elder touched on this very briefly, but I just wanted to go through this deck to explain the steps that you would likely take over the next couple of years. And I think the first step in that process is you need to get admitted to a school in Canada. Now, there are schools in Canada that are called designated learning institutions. What that simply means is there are schools in Canada that have been recognized by the government of Canada that are eligible to issue study permits or postgraduate work permit when you finish your program. Not all schools in Canada are eligible for that. So, and I am certain that at Pinnacle and at ProconnectPAY, we only work with institutions that are DLIs. How long does it take to get admission? It depends on the school. I've seen schools roll out admission letter of acceptance to students in 3 days. I've seen some other institution where you are waiting 4 weeks or 8 weeks. I guess the moral of the story is start early. The first step in the process is for you to get your letter of acceptance or admission to a school. Once you get that, you keep it. Check. That's the first step. Once you're done with that, you begin to apply for your study permits. Study permits are only issued by Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada, which is IRCC. I've seen, and I put an average of 11 weeks there with the caveat that this is subject to change. I've seen students whose visas are approved in 2 weeks. I've had people waiting 3 months, 4 months. In 2015, when I applied, I got a response back that my visa has been approved in about 9 days. And that was quite unusual. In fact, when I went to my portal to look at the update there and I saw it, maybe something was wrong with the application portal. Again, back to the point I made earlier on, start early. Once you get your study permit, that's step 2, you jump on the plane, you come to Canada, depending on the duration of your program. At the end of your program, you will be issued a postgraduate work permit. The duration of your postgraduate work permit depends on the duration of your study. And I'd just like to emphasize on that point so that you understand what you are getting into. If you go to the IRCC website, the website will tell you that if your program is less than 8 months, you are not eligible for a postgraduate work permit. That's clear. If your program is more than 8 months, but less than 2 years, you may be eligible for a 1-year postgraduate work permit. If your program is 2 years, you are eligible for a 3 years postgraduate work permit. So it's either you are getting a 1 year or a 3 years postgraduate work permit. And then when you are done with school, you can apply for your permanent residence and of course citizenship. So the process from start to finish, again, depends on the individual, depends on how quickly things happen for you. I would say in my own case, from when I started my program in September 2015 to when I became a citizen, it took me about maybe 3.5, 4 years for the entire process, start to finish. Some people finish, it takes them longer than that. But I think for the purpose of today's session, I think what you should have at the back of your mind is step one. What is the right DLI or school for me in Canada? And that's where ProconnectPAY comes in handy. And they'll be able to provide you with the options as you embark on your journey. So I always say to people, relax, calm down. We understand your fears, especially as someone who's gone through the process. And I haven't done this for a while. I know that there are 5 top concerns that are usually in people's mind. People are concerned about their job, about finance. Where will I find a job? How will I fund my school? People are concerned about the rigor of the program that they are coming for in Canada. How stressful is this? I graduated 20 years ago. Can I still school? I haven't opened a book in 5 years, in 7 years, in 10 years. Some are concerned about the culture. What does racism look like? Am I going to be the only person of color? Will my children be subject to bullying? These are genuine concerns, and I'll try and address them. And I'm just going to tell you as it is, right? So that you have the right expectation coming in. People are concerned about their family. And surprisingly, people are concerned about food. And a lot of men have asked very interesting questions. Will I still get pando yam? Will I still get olaola? Will I get amala to eat? I will answer those questions. Some are concerned about the weather. I heard Canada is very, very cold. I don't like cold. I hear I don't like cold a lot. Nobody likes cold, I can tell you that. Even the Canadians that were born in Canada, they live there all their lives. People don't enjoy the cold. Surprisingly, I have a friend who only likes to visit me from Nigeria during winter when it's extremely cold. So we all have what our likes and dislikes. So let's start with jobs. It's difficult to leave the known for the unknown. It's challenging for you to leave your job, especially if you have a very good job, to come and start studying in a land where you don't know anybody. And you are not even sure of whether or not you will get a job at the end of the program, what kind of job you would get. I would use my cohort or my set when I did the MBA. So I'm somewhere in this picture making so much noise because I was done with all the 1 year of rigor. So let's look at some numbers now that's cost on job. So in terms of class diversity, when I did my MBA, if you take a look, the class was dominated by the Chinese. We had about 20 of them in class. We had 17 Indians. And like I mentioned earlier on, we were about 8 Nigerians in class. It was quite diversified. I think we had people from 16 or 17 different nationalities in a class of about 60, 70 people or thereabout. And we had 4 locals or Canadians from my class. We had people from Cameroon, Ghana, Bangladesh. And to be honest with you, when you get into Canada, this is how diverse the country is. What you are seeing here is a true reflection of the diversity in Canada. So in terms of gender distribution for my class, it was about 60% male and 40% female. How long did it take us to find jobs? Within the first 3 months of graduation, about 40% of my classmates have found a job. In fact, we had a couple of people who got jobs before they even completed the MBA. I wasn't so lucky. It took me about 3 or 4 weeks after completing the program before I was able to get a job. Within the first 6 months, about 70% of the class had the job. And within 9 months, about 90% of the class had something doing. And I just clarify here so that I am setting the right expectation. When I say job, what I meant is we all had something doing that could pay the bills. Now, for some people, it wasn't their dream job, but they had something that they would go out every day, come back home at the end of the day, they were able to pay their bills and get going. For others, it took a bit longer for them to find their dream jobs. And if you are wondering what is not a dream job, I can tell you that you would not be working outside clearing snow or you are in the cold. No. What I mean by people didn't get their dream job out of school is that maybe they were working in a customer service organization, or they were working in malls before they actually got the professional 9-to-5 job. But I can also tell you that within a year, everybody got a real professional job that was a reflection of the program that they had done in Canada. So who were the employers? Where did most people go? IT, information technology, had the highest number of people going there. Then there's oil, gas, and power. And I think I mentioned that I used to work for an organization called Irving Oil. Irving Oil is like Owando, the biggest refinery in Canada. They operate that refinery. They also have another refinery in Ireland called Whitegate. And then there are financial institutions in Canada as well. There are lots of banks. So if you are a banker and you want to continue your career in that path, I can tell you that you would not struggle finding a banking job. And I can also say for anybody who is a banker who is on the call, it's not, they have targets, but it's not crazy targets like we have in Nigeria. So in terms of the companies, I think I've mentioned a few. Some of us ended up with Irving Oil. IBM was also a big employer. There's the YMCA, and then there are other organizations like Marina Partners. And some people just got out of school and said, you know what? I'm done working for people. I want to work for myself. And one of the areas of specialization during my MBA was in entrepreneurship and sales. So for those people who decided to be self-employed, they got all the skills and knowledge that they required during the program, and they just deployed it. And there are organizations that can help you put together a business plan, that can help you seek for loans from banks. So I would say, don't worry too much about that. Weather. This small picture we are looking at is very dangerous. It's in Canada, you have about 4 months of bitterly cold winter. And when I say bitterly cold, that is when you will start asking yourself questions. Why did I come to Canada? What am I doing here? That's the bad news. And that bitterly cold period is usually from November till February, which is about 4 months. And then from March, it begins to get warm. By June, you would not believe it that it would be so hot, it's even hotter than Lagos. You'll be looking for how to turn on your air conditioners. You see people walking on the streets without shirts on. So it's about 8 months of okay weather and 4 months of bitterly cold. In fact, my elder brother who moved to Canada with his family, so he's been shuttling back and forth between Canada and Nigeria in the last 2 or 3 years. So he's always visited Canada in June and July. Each time he comes, he says, oh, beautiful, Leonard. I'm not sure why you are complaining. So luckily for him, he came in 3 days ago, the middle of our winter now when it's cold. And he's been calling me every day. Why is this place so cold? Why is this place so cold? Okay, welcome to Canada. That's the bad news or the challenging part. The good news is no Nigerian has died of cold. So don't worry, you will not be the first. You will do just fine. And with the right clothing, and the right clothing are available, you'll be able to go out and won't feel that it's so bad. And when I say the right clothing, please don't plan to come with your sweater from Lagos. That's not the right clothing. When you get to Canada, you will get the right clothing. That sweater from Lagos or from Port Harcourt or Benin will not solve the problem at all. When you get in, you get the right clothing. In terms of the program, and I'm just using the MBA as a yardstick here, schooling in Canada is generally tough, but Nigerians are tougher. And I would say to you that it's going to challenge you. It's going to stretch you to your limits. It's going to bring the best out of you. During your 1 year or 2 year program, it might look as if you won't be able to get to the finish line. But I would say to you that once you put in, so in Canada, they reward attempts. And what I mean by that is if you put in the work, you don't have to get the answer right. Once the professor can see that, and I'm just going to use a name on my screen, Oyinloye Peter has put in the work, he doesn't need to get the answer right. They would reward you for that effort that you've put in. The other good thing about schooling in Canada is you would work in teams of maybe 4 or 5 when you are schooling, and you would work with people from various nationalities. I would say to you that once you get into school, please, please, and please take advantage of that team or that group, whatever group they've put you in, and learn as much as you possibly can. And I'll just use my experience as an example. I had in my team one guy from India, one lady from Bangladesh, one Chinese lady, one Canadian, and me from Nigeria. It was the 5 of us. And the biggest challenge that we faced was communication. So the Chinese would say something in English. The 4 of us did not hear jack about what he said. He has just finished speaking English. The India will come, say their own. Jack, I couldn't interpret it. I came with my own accent. Stop, nobody. Communication was a big issue for all of us, and we were all frustrated. But when you get to the workplace, that is exactly how the environment is. So that was challenging for us by week 1, week 2. But as we started working together over time, within 3 weeks, 4 weeks as a team, we understood each other. We knew what the Chinese were saying. I know what the Indians like. I know what the Canadians don't like, and all of that. So that's part of the experience that you would take away from schooling in Canada. With regards to family and food, I would say to you that Canada is very big on family reunification. In fact, if you go to the IRCC website, it's clearly stated there that one of the main objectives of the Canadian immigration policy is to ensure that families are united. Now, as you think through how you want to approach your journey, you have a couple of options. You can decide to apply for your study permits alone first. Once your visa is approved, you can subsequently apply for your spouse and kids if you have spouse and kids. Or that's option 1. Alternatively, you can choose to apply for everybody once and at the same time. And I don't want to go into the details of how that visa application process works because I'm not authorized to do that until I have my license, which I'm waiting for. But I'm just going to provide you with general information that you would find online is if you say you are coming to Canada to school, you will be issued a study permit and a study visa. So first of all, let me try and distinguish between the two. A study visa is what you will be issued that can enable you jump on the plane and travel to Canada. That's what they put on the passport, and it's a temporary visa. When you arrive in Canada at the port of entry or border, if you like, you will be issued your permit, a study permit. It's a one-page document. It will be attached to your passport. And that is the document that allows you to study. The visa allows you to travel. The permit allows you to study. And on that permit, they would also indicate that you are eligible to work for X number of hours per day, which is about 4 hours per day, 20 hours per week. Now, the policy around that changes from time to time, depending on the labor demands or needs of the Canadian government. The last point I want to make around this with regards to study is, don't forget that when you are applying for a study permit or a study visa, you are saying you are coming to Canada temporarily. So when you add your family members to that application, your wife and your children and everybody, then it adds additional, so the visa officer begins to review your application differently. And some of the things that will come to their mind is it coming to study or are they relocating? So just be careful as you make those decisions. Having said that, you know that once most people get to Canada, they don't go back, and they understand that. So in terms of food, like I said earlier on, don't waste your time paying extra luggage because you've carried elubo, ewedu, rice, beans, yam. They are not necessary. I've said this, I've been saying this for 5 years, and the women don't, and I'm not calling out the women, so don't quote me. The women don't listen. They still pack everything and pay for the extra luggage. And I say that because you will find those things here. There are things you cannot find, and I think women are better at this. They know all the ingredients that you might not be able to get in handy. For those things, I would say, yeah, check, come with them. But things like rice, like beans that are heavy, my recommendation is don't bother carrying all of those things because you would find them in stores in Canada. So I think I won't spend too much time on this. Very diverse country, people from different nationalities. In fact, when I was coming in, this is one of my biggest fear, that am I going to be the only person of color on the road and all that? The answer is no. And you would see a lot of people that are not, that don't look like you, that you would think that they are locals. But when you start talking to them, you find out that, oh no, I'm from Mexico, I'm from Guatemala, I'm from Panama, I'm from people from all over the world in Canada. So I would say join the club. When you come in, just enjoy your time in the country. Is racism in Canada? I've been here 6 years. I would say it's very, very minimal. And as an individual, my recommendation to you is don't tie everything that happened to you to racism. Some things just happen and it's just part of life. Provided someone hasn't come to you directly and have said something to you in your face, just ignore that individual and live your life, and you will be better off for it. So I wanted to share this data with this group. And I usually update this when I go out to make these presentations. Nigeria is currently number 6 there in terms of study permit holders by country of citizenship. 5 years ago or 4 years ago, when I was putting this number together, I think we were number 13 or 14. So we've been climbing up steadily, which is very good. And I see that in the number of my clients that have been successful with their visas. Part of the objective of having this conversation today is to increase this number. And I always say to my partners, or even competitors, if we don't do what we need to do to bring in our brothers and sisters, the Indians and the Chinese will continue to grow this number. And at the end of the day, they would set up businesses, they would be head of organizations, and we would report to them. So as many people as we can get into the country, let us do that. The only thing I would say to anyone who's embarking on this journey, just be as truthful and as honest as you possibly can with whoever it is you decide to work with. Provide the right documents. If you've had challenges before in the past, either with visa or with documentation, say it. You will be surprised how easy what you think it's a difficult situation can be resolved. Before my visa to Canada was approved, I'd gotten several rejections from the UK. But my mantra, and I say this to people that I work with, rejection for me, it's just, okay, that's another door closed. It means there are 5 other opportunities that I have to go and look at. You don't take no for an answer. And I say to people that for those people who end up in Canada, it depends on how hungry you want this. How important do you think this is for you and for your family? And don't forget that once you come in, it's a generation you are changing. It's not just you, because your kids will come in here, your kids will school in Canada. Some of them might choose not to go back home. Some of them might end up marrying a Canadian or marrying somebody from somewhere. So it's a generational decision you're actually making here. So I would ask that you please take it very seriously. Now, where do most people go to? And I'll start by saying the colors in red, if you look at it, I think Ontario is the lead, and it's expected because Ontario is one of the biggest provinces, if not the biggest province in Canada. And then that's closely followed by British Columbia and then Quebec. So I think those are the 3 top. And I've also called out New Brunswick, which is where I live. The numbers have been growing steadily. One thing I would like to just say about New Brunswick is, if you are tired of traffic, if you are tired of all the hustle and bustle, if you want to live a quiet, laid-back life where you don't have to do traffic, it takes you 5 minutes to get your kids to school, you can get from point A to point B easily. Crime rate is next to 0. If you don't lock your door for months, nobody's going to touch that door except the mail delivery man who just knocks on the door and drops the mail. Then New Brunswick is the province for you. But if you still want to chop life, have fun, have lots of nightlife, then you should be looking at another province at the end of your school, because New Brunswick might become very boring for you. Again, the beauty of Canada is not like Nigeria, where you come to Lagos and you are stuck there for 20 years, 30 years. No, things don't work like that in Canada. Today, you can be in Ontario. In another 6 months, you've moved. It's easy to sell your house. It's easy to pack your bag and move to another province. So that flexibility is there. So these are some of the things we do, and I'm wrapping up here. At Pinnacle, again, you can reach out to us through our partners, ProconnectPAY. We work hand in hand. We work as a team. And I would leave you with these final words before I open it up for questions. Is life is tough. The journey, like I said at the beginning of my presentation, would be challenging. People do it every day, and people will continue to do it. Some people have embarked on this journey without 1 million naira in their bank account, without 500,000 in their bank account. They trusted the process. They started the process. They asked the right questions. They were determined to get things going for themselves and for their family because they know that it's life-changing. I used to live in Aja, and I just built my house in Lagos then. I used my sweat and blood to build that house while I was going through this process. I used my salary. When I say sweat and blood, I mean sweat and blood. I'd used my salary. I'd gone to loan sharks, called family members. I'd put in everything that I had to build that house. And I was leaving everything and coming to school in Canada, right? And those are tough decisions that you need to make. I wasn't sure what I was going to get when I was coming to Canada. I didn't know anybody. Sessions like this were not happening. But I just trusted the process, trusted my instinct. And I said that waking up at 4:30 a.m. just to get to the car park in the office at 5:15 and then sleeping in the car until 7:45 before I go to the office. It's not a sustainable lifestyle, in my opinion, right? And I was looking at my future and saying, I can't continue this way. I needed to do something about it. And that is why I said, okay, Leonard, start the process. You don't have money, trust the process, reach out to people, pray, and just be hopeful. And I can tell you that things would fall into place. The people that you think would help you might not be the people that would help you. So I would say, I wish you all the best. Again, thank you for joining the session. And I would pass the baton on back to ProconnectPAY and the team. And I'm going to stay on the call. If there are questions for me or clarifications, I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks again, everyone, for joining the call.
Wow. Leonard, this has been extremely powerful. In fact, even I, of course, as ProconnectPAY, I think, I've gotten beautiful insights, beautiful knowledge, perfect presentation, backed up with data and insights. So I'm going to open the floor. But now when I mean open the floor, we're not going to allow you ask direct questions because some of you might not start talking plenty things. So what we'll do is, please, if you have questions, you will throw your questions into the comments. So we'll just get to pick the questions. I would say randomly, because of course, some of us might ask similar kind of questions. And please, I would advise you to ask your questions within the context of his presentation, because if you ask questions outside of his context, it will obviously not be read out. Now, like I already mentioned, the part about the financing, that's the second part of our conversation. We just wanted you guys to, or everyone, ladies and gentlemen, to just have a feel of, a fellow Nigerian, a fellow African that has taken the same step you are taking, and of course, how it feels. And like you mentioned, we're all lucky and blessed. Yes, financing and to back up your educational ambition. In the past, it wasn't available. No one was doing this. So to a large extent, please, if we're going to ask questions, let's ensure that the questions are within the context of what he already said, what he has mentioned, something you're probably not clear about, so that we can, get that level of clarity. So, so let me look at the questions now. Okay. So, Denise, you asked a question I would like to answer. That's a good question. You said, what is the minimum amount to deposit in Simply Finance? 20,000 Canadian dollars. 20,000 Canadian dollars. So I can answer that for you. Okay. Leona, they want to know the name of the organization where you did your project management course. But now, see, guys, ladies and gentlemen, Leonard has given you his personal story. And whatever steps he took was in direct alignment with his career. He did not just jump on taking project management. If you listen to what he said then, he said there were 3 options the school gave of, area of concentration. So he decided to pick project management, and he had to start that process even before coming to Canada, whilst he was still in Nigeria. So don't just make up your mind that I will go and do project management because Leonard said he has done project management. He has shared his personal career track record. Your career is not the same with his career. So don't just blindly say, I'll go and do this because somebody has done it. Whatever step you will take, it has to be in direct alignment with your career path. So we'll get to speak on that too in the second phase of how do you build yourself, because it's very important that don't just do what somebody has done. Whatever steps you have to take, it has to be in alignment with your direct career, what you've done so far, and of course your future aspirations. So Leona, someone is asking that if I have a second-class lower, can I be considered for the MBA program? So Leona, I think I'll just leave answer this question to you.
Okay, sure. So it's and that's a very good question. It depends on, so let me speak specifically about University of New Brunswick. They have 2 campuses. One is in St. John. The St. John campus, it's a 1-year MBA. That's the one that I went for. They would accept a second-class upper or a 2-2 with a master's degree. So if you have a 2-2 and you have a master's degree already, yes, they would take you into the program. For the other campus in Fredericton is another city. The MBA program is 2 years, and they accept a second-class lower. Having said that, my recommendation is we would need to look at your resume and your transcript. So I would say to you, you can send your data or information to ProconnectPAY. They know how to get those information to us, and we can work together and give you back a feedback. What I would not like you to do is to go ahead and pay an application fees of $125, and then at the end of the day, the school will turn down your application. I know how difficult or how tough things are in Nigeria, so every cent that you can save, we will do that. If you send us your transcript and your resume, and we look at it at ProconnectPAY and Pinnacle, and we are still not sure, the school, we have contacts with the school, we have recruitment officers that we work with, we'll send your information to them for a pre-assessment, and they will come back to us and say, we think this is a good candidate, there's an 80% chance or 90% chance for them to be admitted, and we'll give you that information, and then you make a decision.
Okay. So okay, so thank you, Oshikoya. That was actually a very good statement. What I like my fellow Africans or Nigerians is that oftentimes, while a presentation is still on, we ask questions. It always makes absolute sense that you wait for the presentation to be done before you ask your question, so that you're asking questions from a place of, like you have been informed, but you probably need a little clarity. So yeah, thank you very much, Oshikoya, for saying that. So so Agbede, like we already mentioned, the part that has to do with the loan, we'll speak about that part in the second phase of our presentation. So whatever questions you are asking, it has to be in the context of Leona's presentation. Tolani, we already mentioned it clearly. We're not a work-oriented fintech or edu-fintech. Our goal in ProconnectPAY is to enable you study, not work. You study first, then you can work, and of course, get PR and become a citizen. So if your goal is to work, you just have to go and apply direct for PR. And of course, you do that in the normal process. But on here, we are focused on education.
I think there are a couple of questions here. Elder, is it okay if I just answer some of these ones quickly?
Yes, please do.
Okay. I see one. Is there an opportunity? This is from Queenette. Is there an opportunity for third class students with work experience within the same course? I would say that your case would be reviewed holistically. It would be good to see your transcripts as well as your resume. If you can't get into an MBA program because you have third class, there are other schools or programs that you should be able to get to with your third class.
Okay. So, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Somebody's asking if it's possible to change school as an international student and the process. So I don't know what you mean by change school as an international student, but what I can tell you is if let's assume that you were admitted to UNB, just as an example, and then you fly into, you get your visa approved, you come into Canada, and you decide that you no longer want to go to UNB, you want to go to another partner school with ProconnectPAY. The answer is yes, you can change your school, your designated learning institution or DLI. You just need to notify IRCC once you've changed school. That's the general rule, but I will say to you that before you make that decision, make sure that you speak to the right people to understand the nuance around that decision, right? For example, if the school you are going to might require you to extend your study permit or your study visa. So you need to be sure about all of those details before you do that. Someone is asking if the MBA is the only course you can study. No, we've just used the MBA as a case study for today's presentation. There are several courses, and I think someone from ProconnectPAY shared their partner schools or something, or courses that you can study. There are several options that are available to you, and if you reach out to them, they should be able to guide you.
Yeah, and just to add up to what you've said, so for UMB, Leonard just used an MBA as an example because that's his personal story, but UMB also offers STEM courses and engineering courses. We'll get to speak about that in the second phase of our presentation. Therefore, for those of us, of course, for those of us that have, third class, extremely low tutu, like Leonard already said, if you have a master's, then yes, your masters give you an edge. It's easier to, compete for admission when you have a master's or a third class. But let's imagine you just have a pure third class or a pure extremely very low tutu. We also have that option for people that have a third class and extremely low tutu. So we get to speak about that option too in the second phase of our presentation.
Sorry, John is asking, he said he's 41 years old with only BSc. Can I be considered for the MBA? My answer to you is, in my class, the youngest student was, I think, 23, right out of school. And the oldest was 71-year-old man. So, John, you have 30 years to go. You are in good shape.
Yeah, and of course, the age limits of our funding is 47 years old. So if you're 47 years old and of course below, you are eligible for our financing. Okay, Baba, if you have more questions on your end, you can also pick them too. I know some persons might ask you questions directly. Okay, so Oshikoya, now if you listen to what Leona said about the visa process, now his point, based on his personal experience, was it makes more sense to go first on your own. Now, beyond the fact that, of course, it increases your chances of getting a visa, there's something you must also realize when you are going to a new environment, like a completely new environment, you do not want to you don't want to apply that pressure. There's something Leonard said at the very beginning, if you probably listen to what he said, that your decision to relocate abroad, you might not find it easy or rosy. He has just given you a story now that looks inspiring. But the honest truth is, it's not easy the way it is. Particularly people that are in Canada will let you know. Because remember that even if you're taking financing, you still need some form of support. You need to get housing, you need to get a job that supports, of course, that supports you beyond the loan that you are getting. You do not want to take your family immediately. the pressure on you will be too much. In fact, with the kind of pressure you would face, you might even begin to consider even giving up entirely when you get to Canada or the US. So we encourage people, do not take your family immediately with you. Because see, in Nigeria, you can beg an auntie, an uncle, your younger one, to help you watch your kids. In Canada, you cannot beg. A fellow Nigerian will charge you per hour to watch your kids. And that is even if they have the permits to do so. Because you cannot just be a childminder in these economies without a license and a permit. And of course, your space has to be approved to all children. So if you take your kids with you and you've not designed a financial means to pay people, our loan that we give does not cover your children or your husband. It only covers you, the candidate that is going to study. So if you listen to Leonard, he said that he had to go first, then work around his family coming to join him later. But it makes absolute sense that you go first. Of course, it's a different ball game if husband and wife want to study abroad together and you're taking our loan together. Realistically, that will give you a lot of financial freedom. You know why? Because we're going to calculate your cost of living independently. So if you add that money together, you are paying rent for one house, you are feeding almost together. So that will give you extra leeway, of course, to have extra money. So except in that exceptional case where husband and wife are saying, we'd like to go together and study together and take a loan together. But oftentimes, if it's one person going, we would always advise that, see, do not reduce your chances of getting a visa by taking that extra burden of your family immediately. That's just the counsel we give. People will tell you that they've gotten visa successfully with their families. Very possible. But because we provide financing, and our financing only covers you, the individual, and for we, academic excellence is extremely important. You have to be able to succeed academically. We don't disburse the money in bulk to your school. The monies are disbursed in 6 installments throughout your 2 years of education. So it simply means that we'll be monitoring you academically. And the very moment there's a lag in your academic performance, we'll stop funding you immediately. So if you take that extra burden of family, that will keep you distracted because you're under pressure to take care of them, make extra money, work extra hours. You discover that you're already beginning to lay bomb in your long-term success, which is the major reason you are doing this. Yes, boss.
So I'm just going to second everything you've said because it's important and I will reiterate it. And I hear a lot of mothers, understandably, they struggle with the fact that they have to leave their kids behind. And I say understandably, but I might not understand because I'm not a mother, right? But this is what I will say to you. It's short-term pain for long-term gain. And some of us are luckier than others. And what I mean by that is some women have the support system back home. Others don't, right? Some have mothers, they have mother-in-laws, they have sisters that they can leave their kids with. Others don't. So if you don't, I can understand where you are coming from. But if you do, I would say, please put that into consideration and try and come alone first. And the wait is not an extended wait. It's not as if you are coming in today and then your family will never get to see you at all. Back to the point Elder made, you might come in alone first, get settled, get the best grades, get your academics going, integrate into the system and the society before you can then bring them in to come and join you. Like I said at the beginning, is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. But once everybody is settled, you are back together as a family, then you are good to go. In fact, in some cases, you have to date your wife or your husband all over again because you've been apart for a while.
Okay. So, let me see another question here. Currently regular staying in the UK. Okay, so those are questions. You said you did MBA, please only continue because. Okay, so not a question for him. So, guys, like I've said, you have to align your questions. If your questions are not directly aligned to what Leonard has spoken to. We will not answer the question yet. We're going to answer generic questions at the tail end of the presentation today. Oh my application. Abidemi, you also need to calm down too. We're going to get to the point where we speak about the process in the second phase of our presentation. I can never wasn't billionaires. Okay, so Evangel, you can reach out to us. So once, of course, we get to the part where you need to get on board, of course, with Simply Financial, we'll also get to connect you. So please, for any other person that feels that, oh, I have the resources for Simply Financial, you can also reach out to my colleague Opeyemi. She has dropped her URL in the comment section. So for whoever is interested in Simply Financial, please, you can also get across to us. We'll connect you, of course, with Leonard at the back end.
Can I answer Folasis Oshikoya's question, if that's okay?
Yes, boss.
So the answer is yes, Folasi. And if you get in touch with ProconnectPAY, they can put you in touch with me. We will discuss together. But the answer to your question is yes. You might just need to do an evaluation of your HND to get the Canadian equivalency.
Yeah.
But I think with your HND, upper credit, and your master's, you're in good shape.
Very true. In fact, extremely very good shape, because she has an MSc, she has professional certification and quality work experience. So for last year, yeah. So please, when we get to the second phase, of course, we'll now speak to our next steps. So please, for last year, if you heard what he said, because you have an HND, you will need to do West valuation. All Canadian schools usually require West valuation for HND. You wouldn't blame them. For someone like me, that is also based in Nigeria, if I hear someone says they went to Abia State Polytechnic, sorry for people from Abia State, or maybe Kano State Polytechnic, I might also doubt the credibility of your degree, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, Abia State Polytechnic, nobody knows about them. You don't really know the quality of education they give out them. So Canadian schools usually require that all HND graduates do West valuation. Is the only way they can authenticate that the certificate and the degree you have is legit, is authentic, and of course, can also stand the test of like global verification. So so everyone asking about the loan. Like I mentioned before, that is the second phase of our presentation. We're simply in the first phase of our presentation. We're going to be wrapping up now. So we're moving to the second phase of our presentation. We're just taking Q&A before Leonard leaves. So Leonard, someone is asking that, can I apply for an MBA? So let's say I went to a private college in Canada where I probably did like a 1-year diploma. So can I use that diploma alongside maybe my Nigerian or African BSc? I want to believe that's what Jennifer is asking, to apply for an MBA in New Brunswick.
So the answer to your question is, it depends on your grades at undergraduates.
Okay.
Is it? Yeah. Okay,
so Jennifer, I guess like already mentioned, so what we'll simply do is on our next steps, we're going to talk about our next steps because like Leonard has mentioned, one of the key things we're going to be doing for everyone interested in this pathway is to do an initial assessment. We just need to do that so that we're sure that anybody who are applying to a school form, you are guaranteed you can get admission. It's quite very important. Like he has mentioned, we wouldn't want you, spending all of your resources, and at the end of the day, you cannot get admission. So we're obviously going to be doing that pre-assessment, but how that will happen, we'll speak about that at the tail end in the second phase of our presentation. Okay, Luna, do you have any personal question that's been directed at you?
No, it's fine. I can stay for the second session, but I don't want to take too much of people's time. Okay. I'll just sit back and listen in if you need me on the call, but if you don't, I'm happy to drop off.
Okay, no problem, boss. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, okay, so I guess we'll just move on to the second phase of our presentation. So I guess all of the questions that are coming in now are just questions around financing. What can I study? What can I do? What can I blah, blah, blah. So we'll just move on to the second phase of our presentation. So guys, I will just take a few minutes. I need to, the way we want to have our Zoom recording, we want to have it in 2 places so that it's easier for people to listen to the first phase and listen to the second phase later. And of course, we do that just to protect against YouTube, in case they probably ban the video in future, they wouldn't ban the entire session. So I'll be ending the first session of our YouTube recording, so that we'll not restart another YouTube recording again. So please, for those of us on YouTube, I know there are people connecting from YouTube. The recording will end now. We're going to be sharing a new recording again. So once, of course, we get the new YouTube recording, we're going to share it, of course, on the WhatsApp groups where every one of us are gathered. So please, just take note of this. We'll be ending the YouTube recording now. And of course, we're going to be sharing a new YouTube URL for the benefit of everyone.